How did you dare sit at this table without permission?" Zendaya's shout pierced the apartment walls like a whip. I watched my dinner plate fly through the air and shatter on the kitchen floor. The black-eyed pea soup splattered everywhere, staining my shoes and the hem of my gray dress. My son, Kareem, clapped his hands as if watching a show. "Bravo, babe. The old woman has to know her place." His words hit me harder than any hand ever could. I felt something inside me break, like a glass that had withstood years of pressure finally giving way. But they didn't know one detail that was about to change everything. A secret I had been guarding in silence, waiting for the perfect moment, and that moment had just arrived. Let me take you back a bit. My name is Amara. I am 67 years old, and if you saw me on the street, you probably wouldn't notice me. I'm one of those women who blend right into the background. My graying hair is pulled back into a simple bun. I wear modest clothes and no flashy jewelry. For 43 years, I was the wife of Thelonious. 43 years of picking his clothes up off the floor, brewing his coffee exactly the way he liked it, and waiting up for him when he came home late. I don't complain. That's just how things were in my generation. You didn't question. You simply did what you had to do. Thelonious wasn't a bad man, but he wasn't particularly good either. He was an ordinary man, one of those who came home tired from work, sat in front of the television, and expected dinner to be ready. We had one child, Kareem, my only son, the boy for whom I gave up my dreams, my job as a secretary, my whole life. I believed I was doing the right thing. I believed that being a mother meant giving everything up. My life was small, but it was mine. We lived in a modest home on the outskirts of the city, not luxurious, but it had a yard where I grew tomatoes and fresh herbs. I liked to sit out there at sunset when the light painted everything orange and the air smelled of damp earth. I would read old paperbacks I bought at flea markets, sipping chamomile tea from a chipped mug that had belonged to my mother. Those were moments of silence and peace. No one asked anything of me. No one expected anything from me. I simply existed, and that was enough. Kareem got married 3 years ago. He met Zendaya at his job, and from the very first moment, I knew that woman didn't want me around. I saw it in her eyes during the wedding, a cold, calculating look, but I stayed silent. I always stayed silent. It's what I had done my whole life. I thought that with time, things would get better, that we would find a way to get along. I was wrong. After the wedding, their visits became increasingly rare. Kareem always had an excuse. "We're busy, Mom." "Zendaya isn't feeling well." "We have plans." I nodded, smiled, and said I understood, but the nights grew longer, and the silence in the house heavier. I would make dinner for two and end up eating alone, saving the rest in the refrigerator, hoping my son would stop by. He never did. Then Thelonious died. It was sudden, a heart attack in his sleep. I woke up one morning and he was gone. Just like that. No warning, no goodbyes. Suddenly I found myself completely alone in that house, which instantly seemed too big, too empty. The first few days were the worst. I walked through the rooms expecting to hear his voice, the sound of his footsteps, but there was nothing, only silence, a silence that ached in my bones. Kareem came to the funeral. He stayed for exactly 2 hours. Zendaya didn't even get out of the car. She claimed she had a migraine. Weeks went by after that without a word from him. I called several times, leaving messages. Nothing. It was as if my son had disappeared along with his father. One night, sitting in the kitchen with a cup of cold tea in my hands, a terrible realization hit me. I was utterly alone in the world. I had no siblings. My parents had passed away decades ago. My childhood friends had drifted apart over the years. I only had Kareem, and Kareem didn't want me. That truth slammed into my gut like a punch. It hurt so much that I had to grab the edge of the table to keep from falling. I cried that night. I cried harder than I had in years. I cried for Thelonious, for my solitude, for the lost years. But most of all, I cried for my son. The boy I had held in my arms, the one I had nursed when he had a fever, the one I had hugged when he had nightmares. That child no longer existed. In his place was a man who saw me as a burden, as something to be discarded. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I thought that if I had something valuable to offer, maybe my son would want me back. Maybe he would see me, hear me, and let me be a part of his life. The house I lived in was mine. Thelonious had left it to me in his will. It was worth around $70,000. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough. I called Kareem and proposed a plan. I would sell my house, and with the money, we would buy a larger condo where we could all live together as a family. He and Zendaya would have their space, and I would have mine. It would be perfect. For the first time in months, my son sounded excited. "You would really do that, Mom?" His voice was different, almost tender. "Of course, son. I would do anything for you." And I meant it. I would have given my life for him without a second thought. The process of selling my house was more painful than I imagined. Every room held memories. The kitchen where I had prepared thousands of meals, the bedroom where I had slept next to Thelonious for over 4 decades, the small garden where I had watched my plants grow season after season. I had to pack an entire lifetime into boxes: old clothes, yellowed photographs, letters Thelonious had written me when we were young. Each object was a piece of my history, but I convinced myself I was doing the right thing. I was building a future with my son. That was what mattered. That was the only thing that mattered. The house sold in 2 months. I received $84,000. I looked at that check and felt dizzy. It was all I had, everything left from a lifetime of work and sacrifice. I called Kareem, excited. "It's done, son. We have the money." He came that same afternoon with Zendaya. It was the first time she had ever stepped inside my house. She walked through the rooms with an expression of contempt, touching things as if they were trash. "What an antique place," she said, looking at the cream-colored curtains I had sewn myself. "It smells old." I swallowed. I smiled. I didn't say a word. Kareem hugged me. "Thanks, Mom. This means so much to us." But his eyes weren't looking at me. They were looking at the check I held in my hands. We went apartment hunting together. Zendaya chose, Kareem nodded, and I kept silent. That was our new dynamic. We visited at least 15 different places. They were all too expensive, too small, or Zendaya simply didn't like them. "I need space," she would say. "I can't live in a cramped place. I feel smothered." Finally, we found a condo in a modern high-rise in Midtown. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a spacious kitchen with new appliances, and an open-concept living and dining area. The windows overlooked the city skyline. It cost $85,000. It was almost all my money. "It's perfect," Zendaya said with a smile. It was the first time I had ever seen her smile. Kareem looked at me. "What do you think, Mom?" I looked at the apartment. It was nice. I couldn't deny that. Bright, clean, new. "If you two like it, I like it too," I replied. And just like that, I sealed my fate. We went to the attorney's office to sign the papers. The lawyer was an older man named Isaiah, with thick glasses and a tired voice. He read all the documents aloud. I was nervous. I had never done anything like this alone. It had always been Thelonious who handled these things. "Mrs. Dubois, this condo will be registered under Zendaya's name," he interrupted. "My name and my husband's, of course," she corrected. I froze. The lawyer looked at me. "Are you in agreement with this, ma'am? It is your money that is paying for the property." Kareem took my hand. "Mom, it's just a technicality. We're family. It doesn't matter whose name is on it, right?" I squeezed my fingers. I felt a knot in my throat. Something inside me screamed that this was wrong. But I looked into my son's eyes and saw the boy he had been, the boy who needed me. "It doesn't matter," I whispered. "Put their names on it." The lawyer frowned. "Ma'am, I strongly urge you to reconsider this decision. If the condo is not in your name, you will have no legal rights to the property." Zendaya let out a dry laugh. "Are you implying that we would do something wrong to my husband's mother? How disrespectful!" Kareem stood up. "I think we should find another lawyer, someone who doesn't insult my family." Isaiah held up his hands. "I am not insulting anyone. I am simply doing my job, protecting my client's interests." I felt caught between two fires. I didn't want any trouble. I didn't want my son to be angry with me. "It's fine," I said, my voice trembling. "I'll sign whatever they say." The lawyer sighed. "As you wish, ma'am, but first I need you to sign this additional document. It is an acknowledgement that you are voluntarily donating the money and understand that you will have no rights to the property." I signed. My hand trembled so much that the signature came out illegible. But I signed. I handed over the check. I watched the lawyer process everything. When we finished, Zendaya had a huge smile on her face. Kareem kissed me on the forehead. "You're the best mom in the world." His words should have made me happy, but I felt empty, as if I had just given away something more than money, as if I had just given away my dignity, my future, and my security. We left the lawyer's office in silence. Zendaya walked ahead, reviewing the papers with satisfaction. Kareem walked beside me. "Everything is going to be fine, Mom. You'll see. We're going to be a happy family." I nodded. I wanted to believe him. I clung to that promise like a shipwrecked sailor clings to a piece of driftwood in the middle of the ocean. But the lawyer, Isaiah, stopped me at the door. He waited for Zendaya and Kareem to exit. "Mrs. Dubois," he said softly, "here is my card. If you ever need help, call me. What you just did is very dangerous. You are left with nothing." I took the card, tucking it into my purse. "Thank you, but it won't be necessary. I trust my son." Isaiah shook his head. "I hope so, ma'am. I truly hope so." I left the office with a weight on my chest, a dark premonition I couldn't explain, but I ignored it. I got into the car with Kareem and Zendaya. They were laughing, making plans, talking about the future. I stared out the window, watching the city pass by, wondering if I had just committed the biggest mistake of my life. The move was quick. I didn't have much to bring, a few boxes of clothes, my books, my mother's chipped mug, old photographs. Everything fit into the trunk of Kareem's car. Zendaya and he, on the other hand, arrived with a moving truck full of new furniture. Base-colored leather sofas, a huge dark wood dining table, a giant television, modern lamps, and abstract paintings that I didn't understand, but which, according to Zendaya, were contemporary art. I watched them unload everything and felt like I was entering someone else's house, not my home. "Where do you want me to put your stuff, Mom?" Kareem asked, pointing to my boxes. "Wherever there's space, son." He carried them to the smallest bedroom, down the hall, a room with no windows, opening only to the building's ventilation shaft. I could hear the constant humming of the pipes. I unpacked my things in silence. I hung my clothes in the small closet. I placed my books on a shelf. I put Thelonious' photograph on the bedside table. I looked around. The walls were white, cold, and empty. There was nothing personal, nothing that said this was my space. I sat on the bed and took a deep breath. "It's temporary," I told myself, "just until we all get used to it." But something in my chest tightened, an anxiety I couldn't name. I left the room and walked through the condo. Zendaya was organizing the kitchen, arranging plates, glasses, and pots. Everything new, everything shiny. "Do you need help?" I asked. She didn't even turn to look at me. "No, I have everything under control." Her voice was sharp and dry. I stood in the kitchen doorway, not knowing what to do. Kareem was in the living room, connecting the television. "Son, do you want me to make something to eat?" He shook his head without looking at me. "Zendaya already ordered food. It's on its way." They hadn't asked me if I was hungry. They hadn't included me in the decision, but I smiled. "That's good. I'll rest a bit then." The first few days were strange. I tried to find my place in that condo, but it was as if I didn't exist. I woke up early, as I always had. I prepared coffee and toast, but Zendaya would come into the kitchen and sigh in annoyance. "I told you, I make breakfast. I don't like people touching my things." I backed away. "I'm sorry, I just wanted to help." She took the coffee pot and poured my coffee down the drain. "This coffee tastes awful. I don't know how you make it so bad." I felt my cheeks burn. For 43 years, I had made coffee the same way. No one had ever complained, but I stayed quiet. I returned to my room. I sat on the bed and listened as Zendaya prepared breakfast. I heard her and Kareem laughing. I heard them eating together, talking, planning their day. I wasn't invited to that conversation. I was a ghost in my own home. Well, in their home, because that condo was never mine, was it? I tried to establish a routine. I went out for walks in the mornings, buying bread, milk, and some fruit. But when I returned, Zendaya would intercept me at the door. "Why did you buy this? We already have bread. You're spending money unnecessarily." I looked at the bag in my hands. It was my money, the little I had left after paying for the condo, but I didn't say anything. "You're right, I'm sorry." She took the bags. "I'll take care of the shopping. You don't know what we need." I nodded, backed away, and locked myself in my room. Days passed like this. I tried to be useful, not to be in the way, to make myself small, but it was never enough. I never did anything right. If I washed the dishes, I did it wrong. If I cleaned the floor, I left streaks. If I folded the clothes, I didn't fold them the way Zendaya liked. "Just don't do anything," she told me one afternoon. "You only complicate things." Mealtimes were the worst. At first, Zendaya would serve me a plate and leave it on the kitchen counter. They ate in the dining room. I ate alone, standing, facing the kitchen window. I chewed in silence, listening to their conversations in the next room. They talked about work, friends, and weekend plans. They never asked me how my day had been. They never included me. It was as if I were invisible. One evening, I tried to sit with them. I had prepared a smothered chicken dish, one that Kareem had loved when he was a boy. I thought maybe that would break the ice. I put the pot in the center of the table. I sat down. Zendaya entered the dining room and stopped dead in her tracks. "What are you doing?" Her voice was sharp as a knife. "I thought we could have dinner together," I replied, my voice small. She laughed, a dry, humorless laugh. "Together? Since when do you eat with us?" I looked at Kareem for support. He was staring at his plate. He didn't say anything. Zendaya walked closer. "Your place is in the kitchen, not here." I stood up, trembling. I took my plate. I returned to the kitchen. I heard her sit down. I heard her serve the food. I heard Kareem say, "Thank you, babe," as if she had cooked the chicken, as if I didn't exist. Weeks passed, and things got worse. Zendaya started making rules. I couldn't use the main bathroom, only the small one next to my bedroom. I couldn't watch television in the living room because it was too loud. I couldn't open the windows because dust would come in. I couldn't invite anyone over because it was her house and she decided who entered. Each rule was another chain. Each prohibition was another piece of my dignity taken away. I tried to talk to Kareem. One afternoon, I found him alone in the living room. "Son, I need to talk to you." He didn't lift his eyes from his phone. "What is it, Mom?" I sat down next to him. "I feel uncomfortable here. Zendaya, she doesn't treat me well." He sighed. "Mom, Zendaya is stressed. She has a lot of work. Don't take it personally." I felt something shatter inside me. "Don't take it personally, Kareem? She treats me like I'm an intruder." He finally looked at me, but his eyes were cold. "Maybe if you helped more around the house, if you weren't so much in the way, things would be different." His words hit me like stones. "In the way? Son, I paid for this condo." He stood up. "And we gave you a roof. Doesn't that seem like enough to you?" He walked out of the room, leaving me alone with my words stuck in my throat. That night, I cried in my bedroom. I cried silently, with the pillow over my mouth so they wouldn't hear me. I felt trapped. I had nowhere to go. I didn't have enough money to rent another place. I had spent everything on this condo that now rejected me. I was out of options, with no way out. I thought about the lawyer, Isaiah's card, tucked away in my purse. I thought about calling him. But what for? What could he do? The papers were signed. The condo wasn't mine. I had given away my future, believing I was buying love. How foolish I had been, how naive, how stupid. I looked at myself in the small mirror in the room. I saw an old woman, tired, broken, a woman who had spent her entire life being invisible and would continue to be invisible until the day she died. That's what I believed. But I didn't yet know that something else was inside me, something that had been dormant, something that would soon awaken. 2 months passed since we moved into the condo, 2 months that felt like 2 years. Every day was a new humiliation, a new way to make me feel unwanted. Zendaya had perfected the art of hurting me without raising her voice. Small comments, looks of contempt, silences loaded with hate. "You left hair in the sink again. Why do you walk so heavily? It sounds like you have rocks in your shoes. Are you going to eat all that? At your age, you should take better care of yourself." Every sentence was a drop of poison, and I absorbed them, one after another, until I felt like I was drowning. I stopped leaving my room more than necessary. I woke up, went to the bathroom, and came back. I waited for them to leave before going to the kitchen. I ate quickly, washed my plate, and locked myself back in. My world had shrunk to 4 white walls and an uncomfortable bed. I read the same books over and over because I didn't have money to buy new ones. I looked out the small window facing the ventilation shaft and saw only darkness. Sometimes I wondered if this was what prisoners felt like, trapped, hopeless, counting the days without knowing why. I was turning into a shadow, a phantom inhabiting that condo without being seen, heard, or cared for by anyone. One morning, I dared to use the washing machine. I had weeks of dirty laundry piled up. I waited for Zendaya to leave for work. I went down with my basket and put the clothes in the machine. It was halfway through the cycle when I heard the apartment door open. Zendaya had returned. I heard her heels clicking on the floor. She was getting closer. My heart pounded fiercely. She appeared at the laundry room door with her arms crossed. "What are you doing?" Her voice was dangerously calm. "I'm washing my clothes." She walked up to the washer, opened it, pulled out my soaking wet clothes, and threw them onto the floor. "I had already planned to wash today. Now you'll have to wait." I looked at my clothes on the floor, drenched and covered in soap. "But it's halfway through the cycle," she interrupted me. "I don't care. This is my washer, my condo, my rules." I picked up my clothes from the floor with trembling hands. The water soaked my shoes. I went upstairs, carrying my basket, leaving a trail of drops all the way. In my room, I hung the clothes as best as I could. They dried stiffly, with dried soap stains, but I didn't dare go back down. Weekends were especially difficult. Zendaya would invite friends over to the condo. They would laugh, drink, and play loud music. I stayed locked in my room, listening to everything. One afternoon, one of her friends mistakenly knocked on my door. "Is there a bathroom this way?" Before I could answer, I heard Zendaya's voice. "Don't go in there. That's where we keep old things we don't use." Laughter. I heard laughter. I closed my eyes and clenched my fists. Old things we don't use. That's what I was to her. An object, an inconvenience, something kept in a dark room waiting to be thrown away. Kareem spoke to me less and less. When we passed in the hallway, he would avert his gaze. If I tried to start a conversation, he responded in monosyllables. "How was your day, son?" "Fine." "Do you want me to make you something?" "No." "Can we talk for a moment?" "I'm busy." It was as if my existence embarrassed him, as if my mere presence reminded him of something he preferred to forget. Maybe his conscience, maybe the fact that he had betrayed his own mother. But conscience is something that can be easily silenced when one doesn't want to hear it. And Kareem had learned to silence his very well. One Friday night, I was in my room when I heard raised voices. Zendaya and Kareem were arguing in the living room. I pressed my ear against the door. "I'm sick of having your mother here," Zendaya was saying. "It's like having a shadow following you everywhere." "I know, babe, but what do you want me to do?" Kareem replied. "Get her out of here. Send her to a facility, to a relative's house. I don't care, but I don't want her here." My blood ran cold. So that was the plan, to get rid of me. After taking everything from me, after leaving me with nothing, now they wanted to kick me out. And my son, my only son, was agreeing with it. Kareem never came to talk to me that night, but things worsened. Zendaya stopped keeping up appearances. She no longer served me food. "If you're hungry, serve yourself, or do I have to chew for you too?" I waited for them to finish eating before going to the kitchen. Sometimes there was nothing left. Sometimes I only found scraps. I ate stale bread, overripe fruit, whatever I could find. My clothes started to hang loose. I was losing weight. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. My eyes were sunken. My grayish skin made me look like a walking corpse. And maybe that's what I was. A living dead woman dragging herself through a condo that rejected her. One afternoon, while I was in my room, I heard someone open my door. Zendaya entered without knocking. She looked around with contempt. "This room is a mess. It smells damp." It wasn't a mess. It was clean and tidy, but I didn't say anything. She walked over to the shelf where I kept my books. She picked one up and flipped through it. "You still read these things? How boring." She threw it to the floor. She picked up another and did the same. One by one, she threw all my books to the ground. I stood motionless. When she finished, she looked at Thelonious' photograph. She picked it up. "Your husband," she said with a twisted smile. "You know, I wonder if he knew what a hassle you were. Maybe that's why he died, to escape you." I felt something roar inside me, a fury I didn't know existed. But I bit my tongue, swallowed my rage, and let her continue. She put the photograph back, badly placed, almost falling off the shelf. "I need this room," she said suddenly. "I want to make a study, so you'll have to find somewhere else to sleep." "Somewhere else?" My voice came out broken. "This condo has 3 bedrooms. You 2 have 1. This one was mine. Where do you want me to sleep?" She shrugged. "Not my problem. Maybe in the living room, or the kitchen, or on the street. I don't care." She walked out of the room, leaving me trembling with helplessness. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the bed, staring at the wall, thinking, remembering. 43 years of marriage, a son I had raised with all my love, a house I had sold believing I was doing good. And now this, humiliation after humiliation, pain after pain. How long? How long was I going to keep taking it? I looked at the lawyer Isaiah's card on my bedside table. I had taken it out several times in the past few weeks, but I had never dared to call. This time, I took it in my hands. I stared at it. Maybe it was time to do something. Maybe it was time to stop being a victim, but I still didn't know what. I still didn't know how. I only knew that something had to change because I couldn't keep living like this. This wasn't life. This was barely surviving, and I was tired of just surviving. The next day, I woke up with a decision. I was going to call the lawyer, Isaiah. I needed to talk to someone, to understand if there was anything at all I could do. My hands were shaking as I dialed the number on his card. It rang 3 times before he answered. Isaiah Sanchez, attorney at law. His voice sounded warm and professional. "Mr. Sanchez, it's Amara. I don't know if you remember me. I came to your office a few months ago for—" "Mrs. Dubois," he interrupted gently. "Of course I remember you. How are you?" I broke down. I started crying. I couldn't hold it back. All those months of holding on, of keeping quiet, of swallowing the pain, came rushing out. "I'm not well, Mr. Sanchez. I'm not well at all." He waited patiently for me to calm down. "What is going on?" I told him everything. Every humiliation, every harsh word, every day of feeling invisible. I spoke for almost 30 minutes without stopping. He listened in silence, only interrupting to ask a specific question. When I finished, there was a long silence. "Mrs. Dubois, he finally said. "I am so sorry for what you are going through, but there is something I must tell you." My heart beat faster. "What is it?" "When you came to my office, I had an obligation to process the documents as you signed them. The condo is legally in your son and daughter-in-law's name. However," he paused. "However what?" My voice was barely a whisper. I did something I probably shouldn't have done, but my conscience wouldn't let me rest after watching you sign those papers. I prepared a second set of documents, ones where the condo was registered in your name. I signed them as a witness and kept them. They don't have legal validity without your signature, of course, but I have them in case you ever needed them. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you saying what?" "I am saying that if you come to my office, sign those documents, and we file them appropriately, that condo can legally be yours. You put up the money, you have the right." Tears streamed down my cheeks, but this time they were different. They weren't tears of pain, but of something I had forgotten existed, hope. But how? The documents I signed? Those documents have a technical problem. I noticed it afterward. Your son and daughter-in-law signed as recipients of a donation, but the property transfer document was never correctly completed. There is a legal loophole. If we act fast, we can correct it. My mind spun. "Why are you doing this for me?" He sighed. "Because I have a mother your age, and because I've seen too many cases like yours. Good people taken advantage of by their own family. I can't save them all, but maybe I can help you." That very afternoon, I went to his office. I took the bus, something I hadn't done in years. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Zendaya was at her job. Kareem was too. The house was empty, and I took advantage of it. Isaiah greeted me with a kind smile. He offered me tea. I sat in front of his desk, and he pulled out a thick folder. "These are the documents," he said, placing them in front of me. "If you sign them, the condo will be registered in your name. It will legally be your property." I looked at the papers. My name, Amara Dubois, owner. The words looked strange, almost unreal. "How long does it take to make this official?" I asked. "About 1 week. I have contacts in the registry that can speed up the process." I took the pen, holding it over the paper. I thought of Kareem, the boy he had been, all the nights I had stayed up caring for him when he had a fever, the years I had dedicated to raising him, loving him, giving him everything I had. "What if I regret it?" I asked suddenly. Isaiah looked at me with compassionate eyes. "Then you don't sign, and everything stays as it is. But Mrs. Dubois, let me ask you something. Does your son treat you with respect?" I shook my head. "Does your daughter-in-law value you?" I shook my head again. "Are you happy in that condo?" The tears started again. "No, I feel like I'm slowly dying." He nodded. "Then you already have your answer." I signed every page, every initial, every line that required my name. When I finished, Isaiah carefully took the documents. "Now let me do my job. I will call you in 1 week. In the meantime, do not say a word to anyone. Understood?" I nodded. "How much do I owe you for this?" He shook his head. "Nothing. This isn't about money. This is about justice." I returned to the condo feeling different. Light, as if a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I slipped in stealthily. The house was silent. I went into my room and sat on the bed. For the first time in months, I smiled, a small, almost imperceptible smile, but real. I had a secret, a powerful secret, and for now, that secret was mine alone. The following days were strange. I continued my usual routine. I stayed locked in my room, ate the scraps, and endured Zendaya's hurtful comments. But something had changed inside me. Every time she insulted me, I thought, wait, just wait. Every time Kareem ignored me, I told myself, it won't be much longer. It was like being in a movie where I was the only one who knew the ending, and the ending was going to be glorious. Zendaya noticed something different about me, although she couldn't identify what. "Why are you smiling?" she asked one morning when she found me in the kitchen. "Smiling?" I replied, playing dumb. "Yes, you look weird. Are you okay in the head?" I shrugged. I'm just in a good mood. She narrowed her eyes suspiciously. Well, I don't know why. You have nothing to be happy about. She left the kitchen, leaving me alone. I kept smiling because she didn't know, because no one knew, and that was my power. The silence was no longer her weapon, it was my strategy. 1 week later, my phone rang. It was Isaiah. Mrs. Dubois, I have good news. The documents are filed. The condo is officially yours. You can stop by the office to pick up the deeds whenever you like. I closed my eyes. I had done it. After so much suffering, after enduring so much, I finally had something that was mine, something no one could take away. But I didn't go to pick up the documents immediately. I waited. I observed. I studied my enemies like a general studies the battlefield before an attack. Zendaya was becoming increasingly cruel. It was as if she sensed she was losing control over me, and that infuriated her. "Why don't you cry anymore?" she asked one afternoon. "You used to cry all the time. What changed?" I looked her directly in the eyes. "Maybe I just got tired of crying." She laughed with contempt. "Well, you should start again because Kareem and I have decided something. You're leaving here in 2 weeks. We've already found a facility that can take you. It costs $300 a month. You'll have to figure out how to pay for it with your Social Security." My Social Security check was $450. If I paid for the facility, I would be left with $150 for food, medicine, and everything else. It would be a return to absolute poverty. But I didn't flinch. "I understand," I simply said. She seemed disappointed by my lack of reaction. "That's all you're going to say?" "What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. I thought you would beg, cry, make a scene." I shook my head. "No. If that's what you've decided, I accept it." Zendaya looked at me with a mixture of confusion and frustration. She wanted to see me broken. She wanted to see me destroyed. But I remained calm, serene. That night, alone in my room, I pulled out Isaiah's card. It was time. Tomorrow would be the day. Tomorrow this nightmare would end. But it wouldn't end with pleas or tears. It would end with the truth, with legal documents, with the justice I had been waiting for months. I lay in bed and slept soundly for the first time in a long time. I dreamed of my garden, the smell of damp earth and the sunset painting everything orange. I dreamed of freedom. And when I woke up, I knew that dream was about to come true. My whole life I had been invisible. My whole life I had been the one who kept quiet, the one who endured, the one who accepted. But even the quietest woman has a limit, and I had just reached mine. Zendaya and Kareem had played with me as if I were a doll with no will of my own. They had taken my money, my dignity, and my peace, but they made a mistake, a fatal mistake. They underestimated the old woman. They thought I was weak. They thought I was foolish. They thought they could crush me without consequences. They were about to discover how wrong they were. And I was ready, more than ready. I was eager, because after months of being the victim, it was finally my turn. My turn to speak, my turn to act, my turn to show them who really held the power. And I wasn't going to waste this opportunity. Not after everything I had suffered. Tomorrow would be the day of reckoning, and I would be the judge. The day came faster than I expected. Zendaya had organized a dinner party at the condo. She had invited some friends from work. She wanted to show off her perfect home, her perfect life. I, of course, was not invited to sit with them. I was supposed to stay in my room, invisible as always, but tonight was going to be different. Tonight, everything would change. I prepared my clothes carefully. I put on a dark green dress from my better days. I brushed my hair and pinned it up with dignity. I looked in the mirror, and for the first time in months, I saw something more than a broken woman. I saw strength. I saw determination. I saw someone who was ready to fight. I left my room when I heard voices in the dining room. Zendaya was laughing loudly. Her friends joined in. Kareem was serving wine. The smell of expensive food filled the condo. Food they had surely ordered from some fancy restaurant. Food I never tasted. I stood in the dining room doorway. No one saw me at first. They continued talking, laughing, and enjoying themselves. Then I took a step forward, and another, until I stood right in front of the table. Zendaya was the first to notice me. Her laughter froze. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was low and menacing. "I live here," I replied calmly. "Go to your room. We have company." I shook my head. "No, not this time. I'm not leaving." Her friends looked at me with curiosity. Kareem stood up. "Mom, please don't make a scene." "A scene?" I repeated. "Like the scenes you two have made me live through all these months?" The silence became heavy and awkward. Zendaya gripped her wine glass so tightly I thought she would break it. "Kareem, get your mother out of here." He approached me. "Mom, come on, we'll talk later." I looked into his eyes, those eyes that once looked at me with love. Now there was only irritation, annoyance, as if I were a problem to be solved. "No," I said firmly, "I'm not leaving. In fact, I'm going to sit down." And I did. I pulled out a chair and sat at the table. Zendaya stood up so fast her chair almost fell over. "How did you dare sit at this table without permission?" Her scream echoed throughout the condo. Her friends looked at the scene with wide eyes. One of them mumbled something about leaving, but Zendaya wasn't paying attention to them. She was completely focused on me. She grabbed my plate, the empty one in front of me, and hurled it to the floor. The sound of the plate shattering was deafening. Pieces scattered everywhere. I didn't move. I stayed seated, staring at her. "Bravo, babe!" Kareem yelled, clapping his hands. "The old woman has to know her place." His words pierced me like knives, but they didn't disarm me. Quite the opposite. They gave me the final push I needed. I stood up slowly. Zendaya was looking at me with a triumphant smile. She thought she had won. She thought she had broken me again. How wrong she was. I took a deep breath, and then, in a voice I didn't recognize as my own, a voice that was firm and powerful, coming from the deepest part of my being, I shouted, "Now get out of my condo!" The silence that followed was absolute. No one moved. No one breathed. Zendaya blinked, confused. "What did you say?" "I said," I repeated, slower, savoring every word, "get out of my condo." Kareem laughed nervously. "Mom, I think your age is catching up with you. This isn't your condo." I took the documents I had picked up that afternoon from the lawyer's office out of my purse. I calmly unfolded them and placed them on the table. "Are you sure about that?" Zendaya picked up the papers and read them. Her face went from furious red to pale white in a matter of seconds. This can't be real." "Oh, it's very real," I said. "This condo is registered in my name. It always was. Well, officially for the last week. But the money that paid for it was mine, and now I have the documents to prove it." Kareem snatched the papers from Zendaya's hands. He read them once, twice, 3 times. "But you signed. We signed. This makes no sense." "It makes all the sense in the world," I replied. "It turns out the documents you signed had irregularities. The lawyer was kind enough to help me correct them. And now, legally, this place is mine. Only mine." Zendaya's friends got up uncomfortably. "I think we should go," one of them said. "Yes, we better leave," added another. They quickly exited, murmuring among themselves. They left Zendaya and Kareem alone with me. The power had shifted, and we all knew it. Zendaya lunged toward me. "This is a trick. It's illegal. We'll sue you." I stood my ground. "Sue me if you want. I have all the documents in order. An attorney has already reviewed them. You don't have a case." Kareem collapsed into a chair. He looked like he had just seen a ghost. "Mom, why? Why would you do this?" I looked at him with a mixture of pain and disappointment. "Why? You ask me why?" My voice was trembling now, not from fear, but from emotion held back for too long. "Because you treated me like trash. Because you humiliated me every single day. Because you took my dignity, my peace, and my reason for living. Because I stopped being your mother to become your slave. And you know what the worst part is, Kareem? You did it with a smile. You enjoyed watching me suffer." He opened his mouth to answer, but found no words. Zendaya, on the other hand, didn't stay quiet. "You can't kick us out. Where are we supposed to go?" "Not my problem," I replied, using the exact same words she had once said to me. "Maybe a hotel, or with your family, or on the street. I don't care." Zendaya looked at me with pure hatred. "You are a witch, a bitter, vengeful old woman." "Maybe so, but I'm an old woman with a condo in my name, and you two are opportunists without a roof over your head. So if anyone here should be worried, it's not me." Kareem stood up and walked toward me. For a moment, I thought he was going to hit me. I instinctively backed away. "Kareem," I warned, "don't come closer." But he kept advancing. "You can't do this. We're your family." "Family?" My voice cracked. "You called me family while you made me eat scraps? You considered me family when you forced me to sleep in a room without windows? Was I your family when you clapped as your wife humiliated me?" He didn't answer because he had no answer. He knew I was right. Zendaya started pacing like a caged animal. "There has to be something we can do. Some way to reverse this." "There isn't," I said firmly. "I already spoke with my attorney. The documents are legal and irreversible. This condo is mine, period." Suddenly, she stopped. A strange smile appeared on her face, a smile that gave me a bad feeling. "You're old," she said slowly. "Weak, sick. How long do you think you're going to last? When you die, this condo will be Kareem's. He's your only heir." Her words chilled me to the bone, not because I was afraid of dying, but because I realized how far she was capable of going. I realized that if I stayed alone in that condo with them, my life was in danger. "That's exactly why," I replied. "I already talked to my attorney about changing my will. If anything happens to me, this condo will go to a charity foundation. Kareem won't receive 1 single cent." Kareem's face crumbled. "You would do that? You would disinherit me?" "I already did," I lied, though it was actually my very next step. "I signed the papers this morning." He fell to his knees, literally fell to his knees in front of me. "Mom, please forgive me. I didn't know what I was doing." Zendaya pressured me. She manipulated me. "I love you, Mom. I've always loved you." I looked at my son, kneeling on the floor, and I felt nothing. No pity, no love, not even hatred. Only a huge void where maternal affection had once existed. "It's too late, Kareem. Far too late." Zendaya pulled him by the arm. "Get up. Don't humiliate yourself in front of this woman." But he wouldn't move. He was crying. Real tears ran down his cheeks. "Please, Mom, give me a chance. I'll be better, I promise." "You had months of chances," I told him. "Every day you watched me suffer was a chance to be better, and you didn't take it even once." I turned to walk away. Then I heard a scream. Zendaya had lunged at me. I felt her hands on my shoulders, pushing me. I lost my balance. I fell hard to the floor. The pain exploded in my hip. Kareem screamed. Zendaya screamed. I tried to get up, but I couldn't. The pain was too intense. "What did you do?" Kareem shouted at Zendaya. "You pushed her. She's hurt." Zendaya backed away, hands over her mouth, realizing what she had done. "I didn't. She provoked me. I didn't mean to." Kareem tried to help me up, but I pushed him away. "Don't touch me." I managed to stand up by leaning on the wall. Every movement was agony. "It's over," I said through clenched teeth. "I'm calling the police. Now." I took out my phone with trembling hands. The pain in my hip was unbearable, but the adrenaline kept me standing. I dialed 911. Zendaya lunged toward me, trying to snatch the phone. "Don't you dare!" she yelled. But Kareem stopped her. "Enough, Zendaya. Look what you did." The operator answered. 911, what's your emergency?" My voice came out strained and painful. "I was assaulted in my home. I need help. And an ambulance. I think I broke something." I gave the address. The operator told me help was on the way, not to hang up, and to stay on the line. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor. I couldn't keep standing. The pain spread throughout my leg. Zendaya was pacing like a caged animal. "This is your fault. Everything is your fault, you devil old woman. If you hadn't pulled that dirty trick with the papers, none of this would have happened." "My fault?" I looked up at her from the floor. "My fault is getting back what was mine? My fault is stopping being your slave?" She crouched down in front of me, her face inches from mine. "Your fault is being an idiot who didn't know when to keep quiet. You could have lived here peacefully, but no. You had to pull your stunt, and now look." She pointed at my leg. "This is just the beginning of what you deserve." A chill ran down my spine. This woman was dangerous, truly dangerous. Kareem was sitting on the sofa, his head in his hands. "They're going to arrest you, Zendaya. You pushed her. There's evidence." She laughed, a hysterical, humorless laugh. "Evidence? What evidence? She fell by herself. She was weak, old. She tripped, right, Kareem?" She looked at him with threatening eyes. "Say she fell by herself." He lifted his head. For the first time in months, I saw something in his eyes that wasn't cowardice. It was fear, but it was also something more. Maybe conscience, maybe regret. "I won't lie," he said, his voice trembling. "I've lied enough. I've hurt my mother enough. I can't keep doing this." Zendaya looked at him with disbelief. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," he stood up facing her, "that you pushed her. I saw it, and if the police ask, I'm going to tell the truth." She backed away as if she had been slapped. "You're going to betray me after everything we've built together?" Kareem shook his head. "We didn't build anything, Zendaya. We destroyed my mother. We destroyed whatever decency I had left, and I can't take it anymore." Sirens could be heard in the distance, getting closer. Zendaya panicked. She ran toward the door. "I'm not staying here for this." But Kareem blocked her way. "You're not going anywhere. You're going to face what you did." She tried to push him, but he was stronger. He held her arms. "Let me go. You're hurting me." "Like you hurt my mother for months," he replied. His words sounded tired and defeated, as if he were finally waking up from a nightmare. The sirens stopped in front of the building. I heard hurried footsteps on the stairs, knocks at the door. "Police! Open the door!" Kareem released Zendaya and went to open it. 2 officers entered, a man and a woman, followed by 2 paramedics. The female officer saw me on the floor and knelt beside me. "Are you the one who called?" I nodded. "She pushed me." I pointed at Zendaya. "She attacked me in my own home." The male officer approached Zendaya. "Is this true, ma'am?" She shook her head frantically. No, she fell down. She's old. She tripped. I didn't do anything." The officer looked at Kareem. "What did you see?" Kareem closed his eyes. He took a deep breath, and when he opened them, I finally saw my son, the man he should have been all along. "My wife pushed her. I saw it. My mother didn't trip. Zendaya attacked her because she's furious that this condo legally belongs to my mother." The officer nodded. "Understood." He looked at Zendaya. "Ma'am, you'll have to come with us to the station." Zendaya exploded. "No, this is ridiculous, Kareem. Tell them the truth. Tell them you're lying. Tell them I didn't do anything." But Kareem just shook his head. The paramedics checked me carefully. "Ma'am, we need to take you to the hospital. It looks like you have a hip fracture." The pain confirmed their words. Every breath was agony. They put me on a stretcher. As they took me out of the condo, I saw the officer handcuffing Zendaya. She was screaming, fighting, and hurling insults. "This is your fault, you old witch. When I get out, you are going to regret this. I swear you'll regret it." The female officer quieted her. "You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." They carried me down the stairs carefully. Neighbors came out of their condos, watching the spectacle. Some murmured. Others just watched with morbid curiosity. In the ambulance, one of the paramedics, a young man with kind eyes, held my hand. "Relax, ma'am. You're safe now. It's all over." But I knew it wasn't over. This was just beginning. We arrived at the hospital and I was taken straight to X-ray. The fracture was severe. I needed immediate surgery. They prepared me quickly. An older doctor with glasses and an immaculate white coat explained the procedure. "We're going to put a pin in your hip. It's a common surgery for people your age. Recovery will take several months." I nodded. "Will I be able to walk with physical therapy?" "Yes, but you'll need help for a while." They gave me the anesthesia. Before losing consciousness, I thought about everything that had happened, how an invisible, quiet, broken woman had found the strength to defend herself, how silence is not always weakness. Sometimes it is just preparation. Sometimes it is the calm before the storm. And my storm had arrived with all its fury. I woke up hours later in a hospital room. The light was bright and harsh. I tried to move, but the pain stopped me. A nurse came in. "Easy, ma'am. The surgery went well. Just rest." Someone was sitting next to my bed. It took me a few seconds to focus my eyes. It was Kareem. His eyes were red and swollen from crying. When he saw I was awake, he leaned closer. "Mom." His voice was a broken whisper. "I'm sorry. I am so sorry." I didn't answer. I just looked at him. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness," he continued. "I know what I did to you was unforgivable. But I need you to know that when I saw you on the floor, when I saw what Zendaya had done, something broke inside me." "Where is she?" I asked in a hoarse voice. "Detained. They charged her with battery. She's spending the night in jail. She has a hearing tomorrow." I closed my eyes. Justice. There was finally justice. "I'm going to divorce her," Kareem suddenly said. "I should have done it a long time ago. I should have defended you from day one, but I was a coward. I let her hurt you because it was easier than confronting her, and I'm going to carry that guilt for the rest of my life." I opened my eyes. "And now what? You expect me to forgive you? To forget everything and go back to being mother and son as if nothing happened?" He shook his head. "No, I don't expect anything. I just came because I needed you to know I'm sorry, and because I wanted to make sure you were okay." He stood up. "I'm leaving. I won't bother you anymore. The condo is yours. I'll find somewhere to stay. And about the will," he paused. "Leave me out of it. I don't deserve anything. Absolutely nothing." He walked toward the door. Something inside me stirred. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe never. But it was something. A small crack in the wall of ice I had built around my heart. "Kareem." He stopped and turned around. "It was your decision to testify against her. Your decision to tell the truth. That counts for something." His eyes filled with tears again. "It's not enough." "No," I admitted. "It's not enough. But it's a start." He nodded. He left the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. The silence of the hospital was different from the silence of the condo. This was a clean silence, without hostility, without threats. It was the silence of a new beginning. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days. During that time, Kareem came every day. He never stayed long, just came in, asked how I was, and left. He didn't try to justify himself. He didn't apologize again. He was just there, present in a way he hadn't been in years. On the 3rd day, the hospital social worker came to see me. "Mrs. Dubois, we need to talk about your situation when you leave the hospital. You will need special care during your recovery. Do you have family who can help you?" I thought of Kareem. I thought how easy it would be to say yes, that he could take care of me, but I didn't want that. "No, I still have savings," I said. "I can hire someone." She nodded. "We can help you coordinate in-home nursing services and physical therapy." That night, alone in my hospital bed, I thought about everything that was to come. The recovery would be long and painful, but I would be in my condo, in my space, with no one to humiliate me, no one to make me feel invisible. For the first time in months, I felt something akin to peace. It wasn't complete happiness. The physical and emotional pain were still there. But it was peace. The peace of knowing I had fought, that I had not given up, that I had regained my dignity, even if it had cost me a broken hip and a lost son. And as I looked out the hospital window at the city lights, I knew it had been worth it. Every second of pain, every tear shed, every sleepless night, it was all worth it for this moment, for this freedom, for this silence that was finally mine. The day I left the hospital, Kareem was waiting for me at the entrance. He had hired a special transport service for people with limited mobility. They helped me into the van carefully. Every movement was still painful, but it was no longer the agony of the first few days. Kareem sat next to me in silence. We didn't talk the entire ride. We just looked out the windows, each lost in our own thoughts. When we arrived at the building, I saw that he had prepared everything for my arrival. He had installed grab bars in the bathroom, moved some furniture to create more space, and bought a special chair for the shower. "I hired a nurse," he told me as he helped me inside. "She comes 3 times a week, and a physical therapist too. Everything is paid for the next 3 months." I looked at him, surprised. "With what money?" He looked down. "I sold my car and a few other things. It's the least I can do." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to refuse his help, to keep my pride, my distance, but the practical part knew I needed it, at least for now. "Thank you," I finally murmured. He nodded and helped me to my room, but when I opened the door, I stopped dead in my tracks. It wasn't the same room. The walls had been painted a soft peach color. They had installed a new window that faced the outside, not the ventilation shaft. The bed was new and more comfortable. There were light curtains, a pretty lamp, and a soft rug. "What is this?" Kareem cleared his throat. "While you were in the hospital, I hired people to renovate. I thought you deserved a better space." Tears came without warning, not from pain, but from something more complicated, a mix of gratitude and sadness, of appreciation and resentment. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes, I did," he replied. "I would have to do 1,000 more things, and it still wouldn't be enough to compensate for all the damage." I sat on the new bed. It was soft and cozy, nothing like the old, sunken mattress I'd had before. "And Zendaya?" I asked. Kareem tensed up. "She's still detained. Her hearing was yesterday. The judge issued a restraining order. She can't come near you or this building. And there are formal charges of battery. Her lawyer is trying to negotiate, but with my testimony—" He paused. "It'll be hard for her to get off easy." I nodded slowly. Part of me felt satisfaction, justice, but another part, a part I hated to admit, felt something akin to pity. Not for Zendaya, but for how things had reached this point, for how hatred had grown to consume everything. "And you?" I asked. "Where are you staying?" "In a hotel, for now. I'm looking for a condo, something small, affordable. I can't afford luxuries anymore." He laughed bitterly. "Turns out when your wife is in jail and you just testified against her, life gets pretty complicated." We fell silent, a heavy silence, loaded with years of mistakes and unspoken words. "Kareem," I finally said, "what you did, what you all did to me, I can't just forget it. It doesn't work that way." He nodded. "I know. But," I continued, "the fact that you told the truth, that you finally stood by me, even if it was late, that means something. I don't know what yet, but it means something." I heard his choked breath. "It's not enough," I admitted. "It's not enough. But it's a start." He nodded. He left the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days. During that time, Kareem came every day. He never stayed long, just came in, asked how I was, and left. He didn't try to justify himself. He didn't apologize again. He was just there, present in a way he hadn't been in years. On the 3rd day, the hospital social worker came to see me. "Mrs. Dubois, we need to talk about your situation when you leave the hospital. You will need special care during your recovery. Do you have family who can help you?" I thought of Kareem. I thought how easy it would be to say yes, that he could take care of me, but I didn't want that. "No, I still have savings," I said. "I can hire someone." She nodded. We can help you coordinate in-home nursing services and physical therapy." That night, alone in my hospital bed, I thought about everything that was to come. The recovery would be long and painful, but I would be in my condo, in my space, with no one to humiliate me, no one to make me feel invisible. For the first time in months, I felt something akin to peace. It wasn't complete happiness. The physical and emotional pain were still there. But it was peace, the peace of knowing I had fought, that I had not given up, that I had regained my dignity, even if it had cost me a broken hip and a lost son. And as I looked out the hospital window at the city lights, I knew it had been worth it. Every second of pain, every tear shed, every sleepless night, it was all worth it for this moment, for this freedom, for this silence that was finally mine. The day I left the hospital, Kareem was waiting for me at the entrance. He had hired a special transport service for people with limited mobility. They helped me into the van carefully. Every movement was still painful, but it was no longer the agony of the first few days. Kareem sat next to me in silence. We didn't talk the entire ride. We just looked out the windows, each lost in our own thoughts. When we arrived at the building, I saw that he had prepared everything for my arrival. He had installed grab bars in the bathroom, moved some furniture to create more space, and bought a special chair for the shower. "I hired a nurse," he told me as he helped me inside. "She comes 3 times a week, and a physical therapist too. Everything is paid for the next 3 months. I looked at him, surprised. "With what money?" He looked down. "I sold my car and a few other things. It's the least I can do." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to refuse his help, to keep my pride, my distance, but the practical part knew I needed it, at least for now. "Thank you," I finally murmured. He nodded and helped me to my room, but when I opened the door, I stopped dead in my tracks. It wasn't the same room. The walls had been painted a soft peach color. They had installed a new window that faced the outside, not the ventilation shaft. The bed was new and more comfortable. There were light curtains, a pretty lamp, and a soft rug. "What is this?" Kareem cleared his throat. "While you were in the hospital, I hired people to renovate. I thought you deserved a better space." Tears came without warning, not from pain, but from something more complicated, a mix of gratitude and sadness, of appreciation and resentment. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes, I did," he replied. "I would have to do 1,000 more things, and it still wouldn't be enough to compensate for all the damage." I sat on the new bed. It was soft and cozy, nothing like the old sunken mattress I'd had before. "And Zendaya?" I asked. Kareem tensed up. "She's still detained. Her hearing was yesterday. The judge issued a restraining order. She can't come near you or this building. And there are formal charges of battery. Her lawyer is trying to negotiate, but with my testimony—" He paused. "It'll be hard for her to get off easy." I nodded slowly. Part of me felt satisfaction, justice. But another part, a part I hated to admit, felt something akin to pity, not for Zendaya, but for how things had reached this point, for how hatred had grown to consume everything. "And you?" I asked. "Where are you staying?" "In a hotel for now. I'm looking for a condo, something small, affordable. I can't afford luxuries anymore." He laughed bitterly. "Turns out when your wife is in jail and you just testified against her, life gets pretty complicated." We fell silent, a heavy silence, loaded with years of mistakes and unspoken words. "Kareem," I finally said, "what you did, what you all did to me, I can't just forget it. It doesn't work that way." He nodded. "I know." "But," I continued, "the fact that you told the truth, that you finally stood by me, even if it was late, that means something. I don't know what yet, but it means something." I heard his choked breath. "It's not enough," I admitted. "It's not enough, but it's a start." He nodded. He left the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. 6 months passed since that night. Everything changed. 6 months of physical therapy, of learning to walk again, of regaining not only my mobility, but also my spirit. The hip healed slowly, but it healed. I no longer needed Samira, the nurse, every day. She only came once a week for routine checkups. Jamal, the physical therapist, continued to come, although now more like a friend than a therapist. He had taught me not only to walk, but to stay strong, not to give up when the pain appeared. "The pain always comes, Mrs. Dubois," he had once told me. "The important thing is how we respond to it, whether we stay in bed or get up and keep going." Kareem kept his promise. He came twice a week, always calling ahead. He never stayed more than an hour. At first, the conversations were awkward and forced. We talked about the weather, superficial news, anything but the past. But over time, the words began to flow more naturally. He told me about his job, the small apartment he had rented, how he was learning to cook because he no longer had anyone to do it for him. I told him about my physical therapy sessions, the books I was reading, and the small container garden I had started on the balcony. Tomatoes and aromatic herbs, just like at my old house. The smell of damp earth reconnected me to who I had been before I lost my way. One spring afternoon, Kareem arrived with a box. "I brought something," he said nervously. He opened it. Inside were old photographs, pictures of him as a child, pictures of me when I was young, pictures of Thelonious, pictures of birthdays, Christmases, and vacations I had forgotten existed. "I found them stored in the basement of my old building," he explained. "They were in a box I rescued from your house before you sold it. I thought maybe you'd want to have them." I took a photograph. It was of Kareem at 5 years old, smiling with that gap between his baby teeth. I was behind him, hugging him. Both of us happy, both of us whole. "We were different then," I murmured. "Yes," he sighed. "I was different. So were you. Time changed us. But maybe—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Maybe we can find some of that again. Not the same, but something." We spent that afternoon looking at photographs, laughing at some memories, and crying over others. It was cathartic. It was necessary. It was the beginning of something I didn't know how to name, but which felt warm in my chest. It wasn't complete forgiveness. There were still moments when I remembered the humiliations and felt anger. There were still nights when I woke up from nightmares where Zendaya was screaming and Kareem was clapping. But those moments were becoming less frequent, and when they arrived, they no longer consumed me as before. I had learned to live with the pain without letting it define me. A week later, I dared to leave the condo alone for the first time. I walked slowly around the neighborhood. I greeted some neighbors I had never properly met. An older woman named Vivian invited me for coffee in her condo. We talked for hours. She told me about her life, her children who lived far away, and her husband who had died 10 years ago. "Solitude is strange," she told me as she poured more coffee. "Sometimes it's the worst thing in the world. Other times, it's a gift. It all depends on whether you're alone because you want to be or because you have no choice." Her words resonated with me. I had been alone for years, even when I was surrounded by people, because solitude is not a lack of company, it is a lack of connection. Now, living physically alone in my condo, I felt less lonely than ever, because I was finally connected to myself. I had finally found myself. Vivian and I became friends. We started seeing each other regularly. She introduced me to other neighbors. We formed a small group. We played cards on Thursdays and shared food on Sundays. They were women like me, women who had lived, who had suffered, who had survived. And in their stories, I found pieces of my own. In their strength, I found inspiration to keep building my own fortress. One day, Kareem came with news. "I was offered a job in another city, Wassal," he said. "It pays better. It's a good opportunity." My heart clenched. We had just started to rebuild something, and now he was leaving. He must have seen my expression because he quickly added, "I'm not going to take it. Not yet. Not when we're just starting." "No," I interrupted him. "You must accept it." He looked at me confused. "But I thought—" I thought you felt better. We are rebuilding our relationship, and we will continue to do so, I said. But you can't stay here for me. You can't pass up opportunities because of guilt. That's not love, son. That's sacrifice based on remorse, and I don't want that. He looked at me with moist eyes. Then what do you want? I want you to live your life, I replied firmly. I want you to be happy. I want you to grow. And I want that when we talk, it's because both of us want to, not because you feel you owe me something. I owe you everything, Mom. No, I shook my head. You don't owe me anything anymore. What you did by telling the truth, by testifying, by helping me these months, you paid your debt. Now, we are two adults trying to have a healthy relationship, and healthy relationships need space. They need individual growth. So take that job, live your life, and call me when you can. I'll come visit you when I'm stronger, or you'll come here. But don't stay out of obligation. He cried, and so did I. But they were clean tears. Tears of liberation. 2 weeks later, Kareem moved. He helped me find someone who could assist me if I needed anything urgently. He left me all his contact numbers and hugged me at the door of my condo. I love you, Mom, he said. I've always loved you, even if I didn't show it, even if I acted like a monster. I know, I replied. And it was true. I knew it. Love isn't always enough. Sometimes love exists, even in the midst of damage. But now it was a more mature, more conscious, more real love. After he left, I sat in my living room. I looked around the condo that had almost cost me my life to reclaim, and I felt gratitude, not for the condo itself, but for what it represented, my ability to fight, my refusal to disappear, and my decision to matter. I thought about the Amara of 1 year ago, the woman who had sold her house without a second thought, the woman who had signed papers giving up everything, the woman who had accepted being invisible because she believed it was her destiny. That woman had died on the floor of this dining room when her plate shattered on the ground. And in her place, this new Amara had been born, stronger, wiser, and more complete. She wasn't perfect. She still had fear. Sometimes she still cried on some nights. She still had days when the weight of everything she had lived through threatened to crush her. But she no longer gave up. She no longer stayed quiet. She no longer made herself small to fit into the spaces others assigned her. One afternoon, 3 months after Kareem moved, I received a letter. It was from Zendaya. I held it in my hands for several minutes before opening it. Part of me wanted to throw it away without reading it, but another part, the part that had learned to face difficult things, opened it. The letter was short. Amara, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to even read this, but I needed to write it. What I did to you was unforgivable. I was cruel, abusive, and monstrous. I have no excuses, only explanations that are useless. The therapy I was ordered to take as part of my sentence has made me see things about myself that I preferred to ignore. I am a broken person who broke another person, and that will haunt me for the rest of my life. I am not asking for forgiveness because I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that I regret every hurtful word, every humiliation, and every moment of pain I caused you. And I hope you have found peace, because if anyone in this world deserves peace, it is you, Zendaya. I folded the letter slowly and put it in a drawer. I don't know if I will ever forgive her. I don't know if it matters, because forgiveness is not something she needs from me. It is something I need to give myself. Forgive myself for having been so naive, for having trusted so blindly, for having wasted so much time being invisible. And that forgiveness was arriving little by little, day by day. I got up and walked to the balcony. My tomato plants were flowering, small yellow blossoms that would soon turn into fruit. I breathed deeply. The air smelled of damp earth and new possibilities. And I thought about everything I had learned, that silence is not always weakness, that keeping quiet can be a strategy, that waiting for the right moment is not cowardice, but wisdom, that shadows also have limits, and that when you reach that limit, when you finally get tired of disappearing, you can roar. My whole life, I was a shadow, but even shadows have their moment to shine in the sun, and this was mine, not because I had destroyed my enemies, but because I had saved myself. Not because there was perfect vengeance, but because I had regained my dignity. Not because everything was fine, but because finally, after so many years, I was fine with myself. I looked at the city from my balcony, in my condo, in my life, and smiled. A calm, deep, true smile, because I had learned the most important lesson. Sometimes staying quiet is not weakness, it is just waiting for the right moment to speak. And when you speak, when you finally use your voice after years of silence, the whole world stops to listen. And I had spoken. I had roared. And I would keep doing so for every day I had left of my life, because I would never be invisible again. I would never be a shadow again. I was Amara. And finally, after 67 years, I knew exactly who that woman was. And that woman was enough, more than enough. She was whole. Did you like the story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.